Okay, so hello. Inaccurate data capture leads to poor business outcomes, as we know. And the world that we live in has changed in the last 5 months. The future of work means that we're all having to adopt to the way that we communicate and manage business transactions. And we're looking at the way that the impact of the exchanging of business and the exchange of information. And we're having to ask ourselves, is this change going to bring positive outcomes? I'm joined today by Steve Britton and Mayank Chandla. Steve is the head of sales at CloudTrade with 25 years experience in the business process automation and data visualization markets. He's worked with software houses and BPOs. And I'm told that Steve's claim to fame is that he's competed in the 1989 RAC Rally with a round of WRC and finished 30th overall. So well done, Steve, on that one.
Thank you for bringing that up, Jeremy.
Mayank is a procurement and supply chain business and technology thought leader with over 20 years of experience across the globe. So I'm very pleased to welcome both Steve and Mayank onto the call today. So if I can kick off and start with Mayank, if I may, COVID-19 and the global lockdown that has come with it has certainly changed the way that businesses transact, and that physical mail and the processes have been disrupted as well. People have not been able to access their usual place of work to manage the incoming documents. And I was wondering if you could highlight what impact this has had on the SAP Ariba user community. With Ariba being obviously, the largest procurement platform on the planet, the impact must have been fairly significant, I guess.
Sure, Jeremy. I'll answer this in two parts. Firstly, across the board with COVID and remote working, businesses have surely felt the need for digital invoicing, and they're really scampering for the right solutions and working with their suppliers. Secondly, specifically, the Ariba customers are looking to increase their level of e-invoicing and e-invoicing over the network, and this they're trying to do through integrated invoicing. However, the enablement of suppliers is a time-consuming process.
And Steve, can I just ask your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, it's a super topic, very typical for most organizations around the globe today. But yeah, integrated invoicing, as Mayank has mentioned, or what we call EDI or XML transactions, are typically what I would describe at the top end of a pyramid stack of solutions that are available to manage transfer of data between trading partners. The outcome is to deliver a better supply chain experience and expanding on the relationship with the supplier community. By enabling a near real-time exchange of procurement documents, quite often this technical layer becomes a bit of a barrier to entry and causes friction between both parties. And it takes time to implement, and the support is typically quite a large overhead on both organizations. If you think about certain industries where this would be applicable, like the car industry as an example, where you've got just-in-time supply chain with high value, high volume invoices, then that sort of investment I've talked about would warrant that level of commitment.
Okay, that's a good point. And Mayank, thinking about Steve's reference to the pyramid there, what other options does Ariba specifically offer to the supplier for the submission of their critical documents like invoices? At the end of the day, cash is obviously key to all businesses, and without the valid invoice, they won't get paid. So what's the sort of the options there?
SAP Ariba also offers invoice conversion services, or you call it ICS, that can scan physical or PDF invoices and convert them into a CXML invoice that passes over the Ariba network into buyer invoice matching and payment systems. They also provide a dedicated channel for digitally born PDF invoices. They are processed in the same way as integrated invoices. And of course, there is the PO flip option where you flip the PO into an invoice, again over the network.
So interesting points there, Mayank. And if I just may focus on ICS for a moment. So this is the what I class as the old conundrum of using OCR. The problem with OCR is that you'll never be able to get 100% data accuracy, simply because the receiver is never in control of the quality of the inbound document. And OCR will only read what is visible. So as an example, an 8 could be read as a B, or as an S, or indeed a 1 could become an L, etc. And that causes a lot of challenges and rekeying downstream. this the misreading requires that manual intervention that we all try to avoid with straight through processing, and it gives frustration through the supply chain, incorrect postings, and indeed you could end up making an incorrect value payment.
And Steve, can I just jump in? I think there's a widespread view that all human readable documents are processed using OCR. And does this mean that all or certainly most OCR documents contain errors? And if so, can't the buyer just correct the invoice so that it can be paid easily?
Well, good point, Jeremy. Just think about the process and the challenge that the buyer has to process an invoice, the content, into their ERP or FMS system to enable them to trigger the payment. So the cost of labour is with the buyer in this case to process the supplier's invoice. They have paid to raise the PO, they've paid to receive and process the invoice, and are paying for the goods or services. So you can now imagine the frustration when the supplier sends, say, a handwritten invoice or an illegible invoice, or the invoice has been badly laid out and perhaps has stamps or coffee stains or has been crumpled up, and therefore when this is put through an OCR technology, the accuracy is very, very poor. It's impossible to read all of those characters. But if the supplier creates an invoice in their billing application, as an example, this is a digital file, then it is not necessary to use error prone OCR, and no need to hand or put in the physical mail system their invoice for delivery. Simply email this nice, clean and legible invoice that's been created in the application. We can now deploy clever technology to for the buyer to ensure that the information is extracted off the document, and this provides 100% accuracy with end-to-end processing, effectively hands-free.
Oh, very good, fantastic. I mean, automation is obviously one of the big buzzwords. It's one of the keys that we're after at the moment. Mayank, going back to your other points, you commented on a couple of things there. I'd be interested in your experience of this particular problem and the other alternatives. You mentioned, for example, PO flip. So I'd be interested in your point of view on this one, if possible.
Sure, Jeremy. So PO flip means that the buyer raises an electronic purchase order, and it's basically the supplier gets it electronically, and then supplier electronically flips the content of the PO, like the line items and bill to, etc., back to the buyer over the network. This ensures that the invoice coming back to the buyer is accurate, and that is what helps in touch-free invoicing at the buyer's end. Now, while this method is great, the prerequisite is to enable that supplier to transact with the buyer over the supplier network to do this PO flip. And there's also an option to flip this PO into an invoice via your email and still send a digital invoice back to the buyer. Now, this works for small and medium suppliers typically, where there are a handful number of invoices. But if you have a large number of invoices, you would need to really be enabled to technically send invoices over the network using integrated invoicing. And then, of course, there's the PDF invoicing. Steve, you're a bit of a guru on the subject. What do you think on how the PDF invoicing can support over the Ariba network and help overcome some of the physical challenges that the lockdown has had on the global landscape? So probably I'll let you speak on that.
Yeah, Mayank, absolutely. Thank you. I'm not sure I'd class myself as a bit of a guru, but let me just go back to the PO flip. The concept of PO flip, as we know, is great. The problem is, from the supplier's point of view, they've got to log in to a system, they've got to register, and they may have multiple systems that they have to log into on a typical month end, as they do the billing cycle, etc. And each of those PO flips they have to do will take a number of minutes to complete. There's manual efforts, and we all know that sort of 1 in every 4 keystrokes can lead to an error. So this is relatively an inefficient process. Concept is great, but it's obviously got its challenges. And then, as you say, yes, PDF invoicing is a relatively new channel, but a proven alternative to ICS and PO flip. The business outcome is the accuracy, and the accuracy on the network with the ease of either email or upload submission. So those barriers to entry I've just talked about with PO flip are actually removed. and it enables the output from a service that's providing this PDF channel to deliver an Ariba compliant invoice that then gets posted automatically. So it is actually true end-to-end automation. I think, gentlemen, unless we've got any other points that we want to sort of cover over this topic, I'll just leave it for me to, Jeremy, thank you for bringing this topic to the table today for us to debate. Mayank, it's always a pleasure to discuss the many benefits of the Ariba network with you and to share our experiences with the audience today. For those that would like any more information, our contact details will be shown at the screen below. Please feel free to reach out to any of us and we'll be very happy to address any questions that you may have. But for now, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and I wish you a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Steve.